It's no lie that the Persona franchise is a beloved series, and with Joker coming to Smash, it's understandable that there were a lot of Nintendo Switch fans eager to see Persona 5 on the Switch. Beforehand, we'd only ever seen a single Persona game on a Nintendo device at all, and that was a strange spin-off game called Persona Q, which had a weird crossover original storyline using the characters of Persona 3 and 4. But for years, fans have been craving for a mainline Persona game to finally hit a Nintendo console, and it seemed like everything could line up here. Because a few days ago, Atlus hosted the Persona concert, and when I first heard about the results, I was initially quite excited and happy because it's more Persona, and as a fan of Persona, I would happily take all sorts of new weird games because it's all fan service. And Atlus in particular have some weird marketing strategies and craziness in related to their IPs. I mean, with the last game, Persona 4, we also were given Persona 4 Golden, which was an extension of the main game, giving us more social links and characters, as well as enabling us to play the game portably. We also got a weird spin-off fighting game sequel to the game with Persona 4 Arena, again as well giving us Persona 3 characters. It was a bit odd to see this RPG game reinvented into a fighting game, but it's more fan service for the people that love the characters. Then we got a direct sequel to that with Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which was a full-on sequel to the last spin-off being the exact next day afterwards, and even more characters from Persona 3 and Golden. And then after all that, when you thought that Persona games were going weird enough with their crossover universes, they then released Persona 4 Dancing All Night, a rhythm game all about dancing of all things. Now, I never played any of these games, and for the most part I've just watched people play them, and I gotta say, they're weird, but they're also kind of charming, or at least that's how I always felt. It wasn't necessarily something I wanted to see, but I was somewhat happy and interested to see what I actually ended up getting. We seem to be going into the same rapid-fire game release season now. Obviously, with Joker and Smash, it was leaning towards Persona content specifically being on the Switch, and it was kind of provided, but not quite. We first of all got the Persona Q2 announced for the 3DS, being a direct sequel to the last one on the 3DS. This has actually already been released in Japan back in November, but it's coming out June 4th for the Americas and Europe and everywhere else. This game goes above and beyond and has a crossover universe between Persona 3 and Persona 4 and Persona 5, all taking place within the Persona 5 world before going all crazy like. It's also got a new chibi style like the first Q game did. It's strange, but I mean, it's perfect fan service for fans that love all three games. And then at the actual concert was the more recent announcement of Persona 5 The Royal. First we have FES, or Fez, I'm not too sure which way you're supposed to pronounce that, sorry I ain't played the game. We then had Persona 4 Golden, and now we have Persona 5 The Royal. This is an extension of Persona 5, giving us new characters, a new palace, and a whole third semester, basically extending that 90-hour playtime even further. This is the perfect next boost for Persona 5. Obviously, it's an extension DLC kind of thing, even though it comes with the whole game. We've already seen it in Persona 3 and Persona 4, it just makes sense. What doesn't make sense is it's not for the Switch, it's only on the PlayStation 4. Not even the base game Persona 5 is being given any kind of port to the Nintendo Switch, even though you'd think the whole Smash reveal and that kind of crossover would lean towards it. But there's not entirely a problem here, unless you have certain opinions, because there is actually a Persona game coming to the Nintendo Switch. It is Persona 5S, also known as Persona 5 Scramble, the Phantom Strikers. This releases on both the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch, but it's not Persona 5. Instead, it's a completely new style of a fighting game, perhaps completely replacing Persona 4 Arena. In this game, it is replicating the style of Hyrule Warriors, and I'll be honest, as much as this came completely out of left field, I was quite ecstatic to see it. As much as this type of game, apparently called Musou or Musou game, is very mind-numbing, you just kind of mash the buttons and go, it's a nice casual experience, and visually, it just looks stunning. Being able to actually fight against all these billions of shadows and personas seems like a great experience to at least visually see. Especially because the RPG formats make you only ever see a few minor ones, and there's a lot more diversity in this game compared to perhaps the Zelda enemies. Maybe not, because it's very likely going to have the same kind of variety, but I can see there being, it feels more like a Pokemon game almost with how many personas and shadows there are. It will feel like there's a lot more diversity in the armies that might be interesting to see. At the same time though, as much as I'm trying to fight to get this positive opinion, a lot of fans felt that this was a slap in the face, and I was surprised about that. When I was first writing the notes for this video, I was like, oh, this is great. Persona 5 is a mess right now, but a good mess of random, weird, spin-offy games. But people are just hooked on the fact that it's not for the Nintendo Switch, and I can understand why. But as a Persona fan, in general, even though I haven't played the game, so maybe I'm off on this still, I like the concept of these games because it is just more fan service. As much as Persona 5 The Royal would be great on the Nintendo Switch, and I would love to be able to play it half handheld everywhere, I will still be quite satisfied if I get a PS4 as well, playing Persona 5 The Royal on its own. Having a whole third semester, I don't think anyone can disagree, is a pretty big deal, and a good one at that. Persona 5 Scramble, I can see more of the controversy behind it. I personally like the idea, but I did also skip the Fire Emblem Warriors game, so maybe I'm nice and refreshed and ready to go into that mind-numbing experience again. I can also see other fans being specifically angry because it's clear that they did have the Nintendo Switch in mind. If they weren't going to do any kind of ports at all, it might almost seem more reasonable if they were just all on the PlayStation 4, rather than giving one of them onto Nintendo Switch, but not the others, and it's the one that people like the least. I'm genuinely curious to see what people have to say, because on my first impressions I thought this was quite fun to see. It wasn't until I looked more into it by the internet's reaction that I saw how much negativity there was around it. I'm also kind of the optimistic opinion that I kind of feel like these games are going to end up on the Switch as well, in some form, or like they're holding off the reveal for E3. My only real line of logic is me being hopeful, but also maybe with Persona 5 Scramble, they were less convinced of how successful it would be, so they figured they would announce now that it's on the Nintendo Switch as well, to get more attention. Meanwhile, the big Persona games are being held off because they know they'll still be popular, but then when it comes to E3, Nintendo can be like, BAM! It's also here too. I mean, would it also be too far to say that if they did make this kind of Nintendo Switch reveal, would all of this controversy fade away? Is it mostly the fact that it's not on Nintendo Switch that has people all held up? Or is it just the fact that they're genuinely trying to do a Persona 5 Scramble Hyrule Warriors game again that people just absolutely hate? I do know there's a good chunk of people that hate that genre of game, so I'm curious to see if it's specifically the game's fault, or the fact that they're not also marketing it and porting it over to the Nintendo Switch. Either way, this burst of marketing to get all these weird random game spin-offs out is wacky and fun, to some degree. It is great fan service if you are a fan of the characters, and considering how many characters are put into the Fire Emblem and Zelda Hyrule Warriors games, I am very doubtful that we'll only be seeing Persona 5 characters in Persona 5 Scramble. This is the perfect game to just show off all of the personas and all of the characters that can wield them all in one place. Plus, it's called Scramble. As much as it might make you think of eggs, it is also perfectly titled for a scramble of this universe crossing over and, and fighting against another giant clump of enemies crossed over from all the games. And if there's one good thing to take out of all of this, at least we're not getting another dancing game out of this. The concert was the perfect time to reveal it, and it looks like they've left that one behind. I can understand why. That one was pushing it a lot. But then again, people are also saying that the ponytailed girl in the Persona 5 Royal cutscenes also seems like a perfect fit for the dancing games. Maybe they will release more and more of Persona Arena. I'm doubtful, who knows. These games aren't even coming out till 2020, or at least the Royal isn't, so we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. Now that you've heard the news, do you really hate the idea? Are you bitter that it's not coming to the Nintendo Switch? Or are you bitter because you don't want these weird spin-off games? Are you even content? What is your opinion in general? I'm curious to know, because I had a completely different reaction when I saw this in a vacuum. I can also understand there was a little extra controversy by how they actually announced these games at the concert. The concert took place over 2 days rather than one that it had previously. On the first day they had all these dance routines and then revealed Persona 5 The Royal, a great seeming game. A bit of a shame that it's not on the Nintendo Switch, but it still looks pretty amazing and has a lot of content to take in. The second day was all of the same dances again, And then Persona 5 Scramble at the end of it is very much felt like it was building up for a slap in the face, so maybe it was just the context around it, but either way, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I personally am quite excited because I'm of the idea that they haven't officially banned off Nintendo Switch yet. There's always a chance they'll do a 180 and react to the responses of all these fans. It doesn't usually happen, but you never know. Either way, it's nice to know that there are Persona fans out there that are passionate enough to have these kind of voices. Bit of a shame that it's a bit of a controversial one, but hey, what can you do? Persona 5 is a mess right now. But do you think that's a good mess or a bad mess? I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Anyway, I'm gonna end it off here. This was just a nice little rabble-jabble about the recent controversy of Persona and the fact that they've just announced a whole band of weird little spin-off games. I wanted to talk about it. What more is there to say? Anyway, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.